Hello once again, Miners fans. Jason Garrett, the voice of your Southern Illinois Miners, with you on this day in Miners history, presented by Roundtable Design. And tonight, the series concludes. The Frontier League Championship Series concludes in Game 4 at Rent One Park. And once again, joining me to break it all down are Mike Pinto, Mike Ventola, Ralph Santana, and Chris Stone. Gentlemen, it's been a blast to go over the Frontier League Championship Series with you, and I know it's going to be a blast to talk about the deciding Game 4. Let's go right into it with the starting pitcher. You have Sean Gilblair on the mound, Mike, an 11-game winner in 2012, and he pitches 5 shutout innings. So we'll start with you, Mike Ventola. First of all, having your starter come out and throw 5 shutout innings after the tough loss, which we went into for Game 3 the night before, that had to be a big tone setter.
It was a huge tone setter, and it was good to see, just because as we talked about in Game 3, how especially you had such a decisive play deciding Game 3, that it was just so important that your starter the next day was going to come out and set the tone. And Sean Gilblair did that with 5 scoreless innings. But to me, what I loved about Sean Gilblair was, we've talked a lot about the starting rotation. Gilblair was, to me, I thought Mike and the staff really they were perfect on where guys were going to pitch in each game of the series. And the reason why, because Gilblair may not have had the flashiest stuff in the starting 5, but without question, he was a bulldog, and he was the type that brought his lunch pail to work. What I liked about him, too, was he didn't walk. He was a Mike Pinto pitching type guy. He didn't walk anybody. He pitched to contact. He didn't work as quick as David Harden, but he was certainly a guy that you knew you could trust him in this moment. And I know obviously it could have been enticing to bring Harden back, because Harden was you had him on the shelf for Game 5. But I tell you, I give Mike, Ralph, and Justin Lord a lot of credit, because they still went with him, and he proved to be just what the Miners needed in that Game 4.
Yeah, certainly a lot of credit to Lordy for the job he did with the entire pitching staff all year long. We had a couple guys get picked up. We lost Max Peterson, who was our closer early on. And then as we brought all these new guys in, Lordy had to get them all kind of going down our path, and really did a phenomenal job with it. But I have one thing, Sean Gilblair. All these years later, I got one bone to pick with him. Why the heck did we wear gold for the clinching game?
Absolutely. I love them for that. I love them. We got to have some style, some flair. Somebody got to add some style to it.
Well, we ended up with a little bit of flair on ring
this
year.
Yeah.
Mikey Ventola mentioned about how big of a bulldog Gilblair was, and he kind of had this nagging hip thing that dogged him a little bit the second half of the season. But that's exactly what he did. He battled his way through it, and he gave us a chance to win every night out. And you couldn't ask for anything more out of the guy.
I still remember the look on his face when he came out, and I shook his hand, and he knew he did his job. You guys know we've been passing those T-shirts out to our guys for all these years. Do your job. Thank you, Bill Belichick. And that was his job that night. Get us to the bullpen, keep us in the ball game, give us a chance to do that. And thanks, Gilly. He did a hell of a job.
Yeah, I had no doubt in my mind he was going to compete. We knew he was injured too, and Chris did a great job of just getting him into the game. But nobody's going to compete more than that kid. I mean, that guy, ball in hand all day. I mean, you want to talk about a Miner and grit, another guy. I mean, we have a lot of them. We had a lot of guys think the Mike, just character guys, but that's another one that just you want them to have the ball on the mound. I mean, our whole staff was like that. The whole pitching staff, I think they followed Lordy's. Lordy's MO was like that. Ice in his veins, just bulldog. Let's go get him. So what? Next guy up, and
that's how Lordy pitched too, if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, I know it. Yeah.
That's how that guy too.
Yeah. Lordy was that way on the mound. I played against him, and he had a 1 ERA, and he just attacked you the whole time. He didn't care, and he knew how to pitch. But they all had ice in his veins. They were all like him. So it was a great job on their part.
Well, with a pitcher like that battling through a bit of an injury, as you mentioned, Chris Stone, you want to get him run support. And in the bottom of the fourth, he did get run support. Jason Gannett driving in Javier Herrera with a single. And then 2 pitches later, not 2 batters later, 2 pitches later, up comes Chad Maddox. He hits a mammoth 2-run home run to put you up by 3 runs in a championship clinching sort of scenario, Mike. And as you know, Maddox was one of the guys in River City who kind of tormented you the previous couple of years, but he became one of your top hitters in 2012 and hit 2 clutch home runs in the postseason, one in Game 2, which we talked about, and then this one tonight. How'd you get Chad Maddox to come to Southern Illinois?
Well, again, that was a trade with River City.
That's what you call Magic Mike.
It was a wonderful trade for us. He wanted to come here, and it was like he was always meant to be a minor, in all honesty. He came in and he fit in right away with what we did and how we did it. And, I mean, he tormented us. He killed us at River City. I remember a game, he stole home. And it's like, what else does this guy do? Making every play in the outfield. He's murdering us at the plate, running the bases, stealing bases. Now he's stealing home. And so when we had a chance to pick him up, that was an opportunity, that I just couldn't pass up.
Let's talk about his dress apparel for a second.
That's a segue. I'll never forget. Like we asked our guys to do a lot that not a lot of teams in the league asked their guys to do. And it was mandatory for our guys to go to the gym. And I walk into the gym to check on our guys, and here's Chad Maddox in T-shirt, some gym shorts, and cowboy boots. But he's getting all of his work in. And just as always smiling, always doing what he's supposed to do. And he was just – it was good to have him in our dugout for one.
The guy thought he dressed to the nines. Pink shirt.
He did think that.
Pink shirt, ripped shorts, jean shorts, cowboy boots, no socks. And thought it was the best outfit that anybody could have.
You'd see him walk on the bus to go on a road trip. and we're just shaking our head. Oh, you got to be kidding me with this.
Mike, you dressed like that on the bus as well?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It was a bad look. Yeah, it was a bad look, buddy.
Cowboy hat on sometimes. V-neck. He did wear his V-neck shirt. I mean, I just looked. I was like, what is this?
Do you guys remember? I'll throw this out at you. See if you remember, Mike Ventola. What was the movie we would play, the first movie we would play on every road trip on the way on the road? Anybody remember?
One of the Godfather?
No. That was only if we got swept on the road.
I was asleep before we left the parking lot, so I don't know.
Couples retreat.
Oh, yes.
So wait a second.
Now
Mike.
it's a party.
So wait a second, Mike. Couples retreat, that gives me a story that I've got to tell. That's the exact same movie that you played on the bus in 2014 in the second half, starting with our sweep at Gateway before the All-Star break. So Couples Retreat had a history of turning the Miners into just absolute winners.
Yes. And I remember Sean Coughlin started with this, peacock chest. Peacock chest. Oh, very good. So that's kind of how that whole thing started.
Well, apparently the yoga guy could not hold a candle to Chad Maddox. That is fantastic. So as playoff games go, it's not over till it's over, as Yogi Berra once said. In the late innings, you go to the bullpen again, and Florence is able to rally. They get on the board in the seventh, tie it in the eighth. Mike, you said about Game 3 that once the tying run was at third base, there was only one out. You thought you had it. What were your thoughts going into the very late stages of Game 4? Now, second game at home with a chance to win it all, and they come back and tie it up.
Well, virtually, you mentally start counting outs when you start getting late. We need 9 outs. We need 6 outs. And let's just get 1 out at a time. And unfortunately, a play happened in a game that was deja vu for us that we went through back in 2010. I see Chris grabbing his heart.
Yeah.
And in 2010, we had a ball single hit to center field, and Jeremy Millen came in and just didn't get down all the way, and the ball went all the way to the wall, and now guys are circling the bases. And that's what happened in that game as well. And so a single to center field, Alvaro came in, and as good as he played center field for us all year, all of a sudden the ball's on his way to his fence and everybody's chasing it and guys are running the bases. I forgot who hit it, and he ended up at third and scored on a sac fly. And now we have a tie ball game.
Yeah. That was Steven Cardullo that hit the single. It was 3-2, and then the Freedom ended up getting a run. Jocko again striking in the 8th inning to tie things up.
Yeah.
So it is 3-3 now, and Brandon Caniff comes in and does what Brandon Caniff does, and that stabilizes things. But the game ends up going into extra innings. If the heartburn, if the Tums weren't necessary now, extra innings in a championship series game has to be the height of needing to use the heartburn medicine. Florence uses their Game 2 starter, Brandon Mathis, ending up going 6 innings, shutout frames with 8 strikeouts, so he's holding the fort for them. And assisting you, Mike, in holding the fort in extra innings, maybe the most unlikely hero of the entire series for you, and that is your long relief guy, Darren Tu. He pitches 3 scoreless innings after he hadn't pitched in 3 weeks, Mike. So Darren Tu, what's the story with him?
Every game we were playing in the last 3 weeks of the season felt like a must-win game, and every game was tight. And Darren was kind of the long guy for us, and we just weren't having any long situations. And just that day, Lordy and I had a conversation with him and said, Darren, I know he was frustrated. I know he was. You know, he's a competitor. He wants to pitch. He wants to be part of this. You win a ring, you want to feel like you were part of it. And we just had not, until that time, had a situation that we needed him until then. And as we've talked about through this whole thing, we tell guys, you don't ever know who the hero is going to be. You just don't in these games or in these series. And we give the ball to Darren Tu, and he just dealt. He just dealt and kept us in it. We kept fighting, trying to get a run, but, you know, all the credit in the world. We do not wear these. Guys, go ahead and show yours. It's okay. We do not have these without Darren Tu.
Yeah.
So I hope he wears his proudly, knowing that although he did not pitch for 3 weeks, when he did, it was in the minors' biggest moment.
Mike Ventola, what were you thinking up in the booth when he continued to – okay, so he goes 1 scoreless inning, then 2 scoreless, and then 3 scoreless innings, and just keeps you in the ballgame there in the extras.
Well, you know, for me, and Mike touched on a lot of it because, you know, that's something that – because I remember when Tu came in, I'm, like, looking through – I'm like, man, when's the last time he pitched? And, you know, I'm thinking – like, you know, I'm looking through my notes. I'm like, when did he last pitch? And it was 3 weeks prior. And, you know, at that point, too, and because even despite what had happened in Game 3, you know, I'm sitting there going, you know, things have got to, you know, we got to figure out a way here. And, you know, I'm thinking for Tu, he's got to, you know, maybe he's got something to prove. I think I might have even said on the air at one point, you know, if I'm Darren Tu, I got something to prove here, you know, and I sometimes I like to use the phrase a chip on his shoulder. Sometimes it comes across as a negative connotation, but I can actually take that more as a positive. Sometimes a guy comes in and he wants to prove to his coaches, you're making the right choice and put me in this moment here in this game. And I felt like for Darren too, he pitched with a little extra that night. And it was so crucial because, I mean, you look at, and you kind of got to give Florence their credit a little bit. You mentioned Mathis going 6 innings, but even after, you know, and then, you know, he was doing what he was doing. Then Jorge Marban comes in, you know, Marban who, you know, had pitched well the night before. Yeah. So you're thinking you're in Tu's matching him at that point. And I know Marban went only 2/3 of an inning, but still was crucial. It was a crucial point, but still, the Miners' bats fell silent. I mean, they fell silent, so it was just so huge for two to really do what he did, and that was pitch 3 scoreless innings.
I mean, Florence defense was tough.
They were tough, but they also too, and Ralph, I mean, it's funny, they were tough, but they committed that, it was, back in the game, the first run of the game was a fielding error by LePage, that allowed Herrera to score. It was amazing to see that in a critical moment, the errors bit Florence in a lot of ways, which it was a credit to.
I mean, I don't know if anybody could breathe. It was such a tight situation, and, game 4, and we know what we were into. Fran always has a Bulldog team. They're never out of any game. I mean, they compete and they come at you. They compete, they come at you. They don't know a score, and that's what I think that's what was so tough about beating Fran's teams. They were just so gritty and never count them out. They didn't always have the best talented guys, but man, did they compete. And I tell you what, that game was very competitive back and forth.
Two teams that really did compete, as we have talked about throughout this series. You mentioned Jorge Marban coming in. That was after the 6 innings of Brandon Mathis. So you go to the bottom of the 12th, and Jorge Marban, you go from a starter who's just dealt to one of the best closers in the league in Marban, and he puts 2 men on base with a walk and a wild pitch, or walks actually, and then the wild pitch moves them from second to third. This is the championship winning run now at third base. What was that scene like with your team essentially now on the precipice of doing something they'd never done before?
Now, if I'm going back to that inning, we led off with a walk.
Yes.
And Maddox walked, I believe?
Yeah, 2 walks.
Okay. Maddox walked, and then we sacrificed with Carlos Mendez, if I recall. Is that right?
2 for 2.
Okay. And then we had another walk. Who was that?
Coughlin.
That's right, because we had put Coughlin in at that point. By the way, I'll tell you a very funny Sean Coughlin story at this point. We were talking about Tums. So as we were getting ready to go into the bottom of the inning, I walk over to Chris and I said, I need the bottle. And the bottle is a bottle of Tums. And he hands it to me, and I'm pouring them in my hand. And Coughlin walks over. He says, "Skip, those aren't Skittles." So at the rate that I was pounding Tums, he must have been watching. But yeah, we put coffee in, and
about grit with coffee. Didn't he have a hurt hand still?
No, it was his knees.
Knee. I knew it was something. I knew he had something
on those knees at that point in his career.
Yeah.
But I remember bringing him into the game, and he sprinted in like it was the first game of the season. Like, it just meant so much to him to be out there, and he stepped up. I mean, he paddled, right, Chris? Like you, he was on the trainer's table all series. Yeah. Yep.
Well, he had been really over the last, month or so before that, when we had to go get Chris Anderson because his coffee was, I remember when he got hurt, and that was a big thing for us. And but he was such a big bat, and he was such a leader in that clubhouse, and he helped us day in and day out, whether he was in the game or whether he was in the dugout, whether he's helping Chris Anderson with how we're working particular hitters. He was just –
He's a great vet.
He showed his leadership. Yeah, he was a great veteran. So back to you, Jay. So now Coughlin walks, and we end up with the wild pitch.
And Marban was, for all of his success, he was known for being a little bit wild at times, and he certainly was on this night. Second and third, nobody out. Second and third, 1 out at this point. And here is the moment that decides the entire series. Unfortunately for Ken and Lester, all that he did throughout the Traverse City series, throughout the first part of this series, he comes up and strikes out. And Alvaro Ramirez is due up behind him and in the leadoff spot in your order. And Fran Reardon goes to his left-hander out of the bullpen in Brent Chauvin, who I believe was a rookie at that time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. But Alvaro Ramirez even being in the on-deck circle was a bit of gamesmanship by you.
It was. Will Block had, for the last few batters, been in the bathroom stretching in there because I did not want him even visible. I didn't want Fran to look in and see him. I didn't want to trigger a thought. I wasn't going to put him in the on-deck circle. And it was the plan to go to Will because Will could, with one swing, win the ball game for us.
Yeah.
And so now he goes and now we have the lefty coming in, and now I put Will into the ball game. And so you think about this way. He's going to throw 4 intent. Back then, you had to throw all 4 pitches. You think about how the game has changed. How would it affect us now? Now you just go, put him on.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. Jovan had to throw 4 pitches in the other batter's box. All of them high, all of them away. And off Will Block goes to first base. And here comes Jake Kazi, who had a phenomenal year for us. The night before, I knew he was frustrated because, he had an opportunity the night before and it didn't go his way. And now he's got a chance. But where was the first pitch? It was an up and in on Kazi.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's thrown 4 pitches in that same spot right before that. And I really think that was a big game changer right there.
And Jake Kazi, you mentioned he had a tremendous season, an all-star season. I think more home runs than any minor shortstop has ever hit in a single season. But in the postseason, he had not had a great postseason yet. So Mike Ventola, this was another case, we've talked about it all throughout this series, of guys stepping up in a big spot. It doesn't have to be the same guy each time, and this was Jake Kazi's time.
Certainly was. It's funny because I still remember when Kazi stepped in after Block went to first, and I remember sitting there thinking, I'm going, this has got to be the time, because at this point you had bases loaded, 2 outs. It was getting late, and the way the stadium lights were shining down in the field, I'm going, if the Miners are going to win the champion, I'm thinking that this has got to be the moment, because if not, then I'm thinking, all right, we were getting on the bus, we're going back to Florence, it's game 5, just because of what had been occurring in that game. And you mentioned too how Kazi had his struggles in the postseason, but at some point a guy had to be due. Even though he had a stellar regular season, at some point he was going to be due in the postseason because he didn't really have that big hit at all. But I'm thinking, if this is going to be the time for Jake Kazi, it's going to be now, or it's not going to be the time. And at that point, people in the crowd, I remember looking out in the crowd, and people start moving a certain way in their seats a little bit. They kind of knew that this without question could be the pivotal moment for the Southern Illinois Miners with Jake Kazi stepping in the plate.
Well, Ralph, you're his hitting coach, so he's up in that situation, bases loaded and 2 outs. What are you thinking up at third base for Jake Kazi at the plate?
Well, I'll lead into it. I didn't say anything to him. You at this point, you kind of let the guy, you just tell him relax and, hey, do what you've been doing all year. You've been coming up clutch, so you kind of want to leave him alone. And I'll lead into it where he got to the 3-1 count, and they called time and went up to the mound to talk to him. And so we talked. He's like, what do you think? It's 3-1. I said, Bub, I think we have to take here. I mean, you're going to see the same pitch twice. He can't walk you. He can't. He's got to groove two balls right here. At least get the timing down for the first one, and then we'll go get the second pitch. He's like, that's a good idea. Let's do it. And that's when he made me fall to my knees.
Oh, yeah.
The interesting thing, and talking about grooving 2 pitches, the first one of the 2, anything but grooved. He couldn't keep himself from kind of corkscrewing around and going around for a swing.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's when I fell to the ground, because that's ball 4, the game's over. And I was just like, oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. What else do we have to do? Game 3, this happens. Game 4, he swings at a 3-1 ball that's up in his eyes. I'm just like, I couldn't even breathe. I mean, I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything. I mean, at this point, my hat was not on my head. I I couldn't hold back emotions. I was just not what you should be at that point in time for sure, which was a train wreck.
Well, now the count is 3-2, of course. If there's can be any more of an additional weight put on the moment, it's extra innings in with a championship on third base. It's bases loaded. There's 2 outs. It's 3-2. It's the scenario that every single kid dreams up about, coming up and hitting the walk-off home run or winning the game for their team. And what does Jake Kazi do? Of course, Mike Pinto, but he takes a 3-2 slider outside for ball 4, and you win the first championship in franchise history. Thoughts going through your head on the top step of the dugout when ball 4 is called?
Chauvin out of the stretch. Here's the pitch. Low and away, ball 4. And the Miners win the championship here at Red One Park.
First of all, and I'm on the top step of the dugout a lot. That inning, I was not on the top step. I was kind of down in the pit area where the coaches are. And
sitting on a bench.
No. Oh, no. I could never do that. Just never felt right. But I'll tell you what did happen. I was standing there. I had my arms crossed. And as Chauvin came set, I closed my eyes. I never saw the pitch until I saw the videos after the fact. I wanted to hear the crowd. And it was I get goosebumps even thinking about it. And all of a sudden, the electricity of the crowd that was there in the uproar, and opened my eyes and I see Kazi walking to first base. And as I came out of the dugout, Ralph literally picked me up and is carrying me around the area in front of our dugout. So it was incredible. This moment, I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
And of course, Chris Stone, you're there as well. You've been through this entire journey with Mike and with Ralph. What were your emotions like in that moment?
In the lead up, just prior to every pitch, I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't not watch the pitch, just so full of emotions. And then ball 4, and I jumped over the rail, as is my tradition, and eventually found Ralph and found Mike. And, you have the fireworks going off, and it's the gorilla off of your back. And it's finally, cashing in on all the hard work that you put in with people who become your family, people who, you still talk to multiple times every year, more than just special occasions. And it really was unbelievable. And I couldn't agree with Mike more. I've had goosebumps this whole conversation. Just kind of, it takes you right back to the dugout in that moment. And it's something that I will never forget. It's pretty great.
Yeah. We had such a brotherhood, and you just bring back all the memories and the fights, the arguments, I love you the next day after, you go back and we're brothers, and your dad's back, and, Mike's just sitting there. All those, I don't care. We worked harder than anybody did. We try to beat everybody to the punch. We worked harder. We were better. It's just bottom line. That was just the truth and just who we are. But the brotherhood we had, the bonds we had, far none. Like you say, to this day, we still talk, we still communicate, and we still root on for that moment. We're still together, and you can't say that about a lot of franchises.
Mike Ventola, I've before a number of years ago, I went on YouTube and found the game and listened to your final call of the moment. And it sounds to me like you make the final call and then you take your headset off, or you make a pause and just kind of let the moment wash over you. What was the emotion like, and what was that moment like for you up in the broadcast booth in Marion?
I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like it was, it's just, it's funny because I remember, it's and if I could say this especially for those watching, like, selfishly, I say this now 8 years later. as much as I wear this ring proudly, and as much as working with the front office and obviously getting the opportunity to, be a small part on the ride, the three other men that are in this Zoom call right now, and Mike, Ralph, and Stoney, I mean, these three have been since the beginning. And to see these three guys get that championship they've been fighting hard for at that point during that 2012 season, it was so special because they had been there since, day one when the Miners were born. I remember when we came to that call that night, broadcasters, we always, we hope for the walk-off home run, the no-hitter, the big strikeout, especially if your pitcher's on to get the close. The words that resonate in my mind since that night to this day are a few very simple words: low and away, ball four. And that's it. I mean, at low and away, ball four. I will recite that. I've continued to recite it from that moment until probably the day, I'm not on this earth anymore. It's etched in my brain. And you mentioned too, I paused. One thing too, especially because that year was such a learning experience for me. Mike, Chris, and Ralph, as much as obviously within their own development in their positions and obviously trying to do what they can to coach a group of men to a championship, they had to deal with a young broadcaster, okay? They had to deal with me, learning the ropes in some ways. And I tried to be a good student. I tried to be a good student in that way. And, being a student of doing what, Jason, you and I do for a living is sometimes saying little or saying nothing is better than trying to say something. So at that point, I'm thinking, get your point across, shut up, let the crowd take over from the Vince Scully School of Broadcasting, and then allow that to take in, and then come in and then set, and then come back and say the other things that need to be said. So I can tell you the truth now of what happened. I didn't take off my headset. There was somebody in the broadcast booth with me, someone who was on every road trip, and that is Larry, the bus driver. Everybody laughing. And at that point, we're jumping. I mean, at that point, I jump out of my seat. I make the call. And obviously, I'm thinking, right, you say it. But then I had Larry next to me, and I had to make sure Larry didn't carry over onto the broadcast. So we're silently going. And Larry, God bless him, he was good that night. He wanted to scream, but he just kept his mouth shut. He was like pumping his fist. We high-fived each other, and then I came back on the air and obviously did what I had to do.
Poor Larry. I gave it to Larry that day. I honestly didn't want to see Larry that day because I knew he's our bus driver. I was like, look, I'm not looking forward to – what are you doing?
He was here.
What? Like, what are you doing? You're the last person I want to see right now.
I said something to him like, Larry, I just think you have a job to do. But, do me a favor and go away.
We don't want your services anymore this year.
Ladies in there.
Thank you for a job well done, but but it was a phenomenal experience getting to witness everything that had occurred.
If you guys remember that year, we had a period where it was unbelievably hot weather.
Yeah.
And we had a long stretch where it was in the hundreds. And as a result, everything had dried out. So we weren't able to do fireworks shows. So Timmy kept them all together. And there they are out in center field. And the moment we win, I don't know if anybody's ever had a fireworks display like that, but the moment that pitch happened, all of a sudden the sky lit up, and as we are running around with each other and hugs, and I remember as we kind of got the line, and Sean Coughlin came up, as strong as he was, literally picked me up in the air, and so as we're going through all that, fireworks are all over the sky. So it was just incredible moment, and the hours and hours that followed were celebratory. And John Lakin had come in and was with us for the series as well there, and so we're all together and able to enjoy that.
speaking of those hours and hours, that was the last thing I was going to ask you all. Do you remember those hours and hours of the celebratory period afterwards? Because I can almost guarantee it that maybe one too many each adult beverages were consumed that night in Southern Illinois.
Well, it started with the staff and a bottle that I had gone out and bought that day because I had a feeling. I bought a bottle of Dom Perignon that day because that one was going to be worth celebrating. I still have the bottle. And it was a special night. We started with that, and as the team always did with such first class, as the guys came in, you know, take off your shoes, take off your hat, throw them in the box, and we went in the clubhouse, and the plastic was up all over the lockers, and we celebrated like crazy for a long time. I remember later that we had to replace the carpeting because the smell from that lingered a long time. And I remember John Simmons saying to me, you know what, you win a championship, I'll buy you new carpeting every year.
3 of our last 4 home games were campaign celebrations.
Yeah.
Last game of the regular season to get in.
Yeah.
Game 3 against Traverse City, and then game 4 against Florence. So it was saturated.
What was cool?
What we've learned since then is you put plastic down on the ground too. Yes. We didn't know that then.
What was probably cool for me, Jason, was, and you know, it's funny because when we had clinched the playoff spot, and then it was funny too because as we record this, one of the funniest celebration photos popped up on my phone.
I was gonna say it, but you tell the story.
A certain, group of individuals decided to douse me not only with beer overhead, but decided to pull my pants out.
Oh no!
There are pictures me captured with it, but I tell you, but you know what's funny? And this was the biggest moment in franchise history. And guys started, but they wait. I don't want to say, and these 3 can obviously say whether it was true or not. But when I got in, then it was nice. You guys waited. They waited for me because I'm off the air. I'm running down. It was just,
You got to be in the locker room picture with after the celebration and be a part of all that.
Dude, you were part of the family. Come on, man.
Yeah, so, to be a part of that picture, it was, once because John Eric Bradford was our photographer.
Right.
Justin Walker. So many pictures were taken. The Daily Republican the next day was phenomenal. I think Tim Arsenal got 100 copies, I felt like, of the paper the next day. It was great.
Yes.
Well, I believe there was a shirt that was lost that night as well, based on one of those photos that you mentioned, Mr. Ventola.
Yeah. It was just a fun time. It was the pinnacle of what was a phenomenal year. And it was, nights still remember. Just this.
And then I recall, the police came and talked to you about something, didn't they?
They did. Yes, they did, Mike. Funny you mentioned that. So. You got me back, you got me back because folks,
I told you I was going to get you back, but you wouldn't know when.
I know. And it happened to be on the most celebratory night of our entire season, and I have to deal with the Marion police. So, in a fun way, folks. Nothing.
Yeah. I put the Marion police in and asked them if they would go and maybe tease Mr. Ventola a little bit and lead him to believe that he was going to be heading off to the Marion Police Headquarters.
And the funny thing is I come out of the clubhouse, and I'm drenched in champagne and beer. And then a cop approaches me. I'm going, oh, this is going to be wonderful. Right? I'm reeking of booze. Started questioning me. Sir, you've been drinking a lot, I see. And just kept going on and on. But then at my peripheral vision, people just start gathering. I'm like, what is going on here? And you just look at me and you're like, gotcha. I'm like, don't ever pull stunts on the coaches, no matter on your boss, whatever. Never, ever do it because it bites you in the rear end at the end.
A night to remember for sure for everybody involved as the Miners win the 2012 Frontier League Championship over the Florence Freedom 3-1. Mike Pinto, I'll let you kind of put a bow on this this season of This Day in Miners history and this series on the Frontier League Championship Series. Just a year where, unfortunately, the Miners were not able to take the field because of the coronavirus pandemic, but certainly we have enjoyed bringing you the moments from the past 13 years of Miners history, but there's no moment like the moment that we just talked about tonight.
No, there really isn't. And first of all, Jace, thank you for getting all this together. What a great idea. And us to be able to go back and relive this is incredibly special. To all you guys for taking time to be a part of this. Chris Stone, you are kind of an unsung hero in all this as well, in that nobody knows about the base hits you got, but the truth is there were guys that were able to play games because you got them ready to play games, or stayed up through the night to make sure guys got iced or guys got treated, or early at noon the next day to make sure guys were getting their work done. You know, you were always last guy out of the clubhouse. And so thanks for all you did, not only, you know, in that season, but over all these years for us. Mike Ventola, it's been so cool having you rejoin us again for this and be part of, you know, reliving these stories. It's been a lot of fun, and we are so proud of you and your development and kind of where you've gone and where you've been able to go with your career and where you will go with your career in the future. I can't wait to someday come see you in a big league ballpark. So someday, you know, we're going to watch that happen. And Ralphie's been with me since day one, since I tried to trade for him with Winnipeg and he wouldn't come play for me in Sioux Falls. I finally convinced him to do the deal. Who'd have thought all these years later, and now he just has a birthday and has a great life ahead of him. He is settled in Southern Illinois. Who'd have thought that? And back when he was from Orlando and had to have his Dodge, his souped up Dodge, and now he's got his truck. So who'd have thought?
Yeah, crazy times, awesome times.
Well, Miners fans, we hope that you have enjoyed looking back at all of the great moments and great players from the history of your Southern Illinois Miners. In the meantime, be sure to have a safe and healthy off-season. Well, I guess the entire thing has been an off-season, but the winter time, please be sure to be safe, wear a mask, social distance, do all of that good stuff so that come 2021 in May, we can all rejoin each other once again at Rent One Park and make more Miners history together. This is Jason Garrett signing off from the 2020 season of This Day in Miners history.